Hey everyone, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating text about waking up from what feels like a frantic, superficial life and shifting into a state of profound, peaceful presence. If you've ever felt like you're just, going through the motions, constantly busy but never really feeling completely alive, this is absolutely for you. We're going to break down some deeply profound concepts, but don't worry, we are keeping it completely jargon-free and totally beginner-friendly. The goal is simple: to help you understand how to step off the autopilot of modern life. The text starts with this brilliantly striking metaphor. Just ask yourself, are we living our lives like busy insects? It really asks us to reflect on whether our daily hustle, waking up, rushing to work, eating, sleeping, and doing it all over again is actually just a primal survival instinct. It argues that a lot of our frantic modern behavior is at its core pretty much like insects just buzzing around, purely focused on surviving and keeping the species going. Wild, right? And that brings us to the core of our source material, which maps out a really clear journey. It shows this path out of a state of superficiality, that frantic, insect-like survival mode, moving up into a state of self-assurance, and ultimately reaching a much higher state called presence. Think of this as our roadmap for today. We're going to look at exactly how we move from the very bottom of that path all the way to the top. So, part one, the illusion of busyness. To understand how to achieve pure presence, we really have to look at the trap we're currently stuck in and how this illusion of busyness actually controls us. The text makes a super interesting observation about human evolution. Just like insects, our early survival was purely instinctive. We didn't sit around pondering the meaning of the universe. We just looked for food and shelter. But as our brains evolved and our intellect developed, something unexpected happened. Instead of just surviving, we started thinking. And then, well, we started overthinking. We essentially became totally trapped in our own complex thoughts. The big realization here is that our constant thinking is the exact culprit preventing us from feeling a sense of oneness with life. Now, obviously, we praise the human intellect, and rightly so. It built our entire modern world. But the source points out a massive side effect. When we're constantly caught up in this web of thoughts, worrying about tomorrow or stressing over yesterday, we are totally disconnected from what's happening right here, right now. Moving into part two signs of superficiality. Let's look at how this overthinking actually shows up in our daily behavior, because this illustrates our struggle perfectly. We basically have two main reactions. On one hand, there's the absent-minded reaction. This is when you just mentally check out. Your eyes glaze over, maybe you're scrolling on your phone for hours, basically freezing up because the reality of life just feels way too overwhelming. Then, on the flip side, we have the frantic reaction. This is that person working 80 hours a week, constantly moving, constantly doing things just so they don't have to stop and actually feel their underlying fears. We either check out to escape or we run around in a total blur just to avoid it. So, the crucial point to take away is that this isn't just an individual problem, it's the whole society. The explainer reveals that the hyper-busy modern world we live in, the endless emails, the hustle culture, the nonstop notifications, is actually a direct result of this frantic, fear-avoidant behavior. We have literally built a society that rewards running away from our inner stillness. All right, part three, finding your inner confidence. Now, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. There is an antidote to this frantic living. Here's a really simple roadmap of our evolution according to the text. We start down at step one, superficiality. That's living in the fear and busyness we just talked about. Then we move to step two, self-assurance, where we begin to actually trust the flow of life. And ultimately, we aim for step three, presence. Right now, we're going to focus on how to make that big leap from step one to step two. This requires a massive paradigm shift. You see, you begin to unlock self-assurance when you realize you don't have to overthink every single choice. Just think about that for a second. True confidence appears when you stop letting your frantic thoughts drive the car. The text explains that life has its own natural rhythm and flow, and when you tune into that, decisions can actually happen naturally, almost effortlessly, without you agonizing over a pros and cons list for every tiny detail. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, so how do I do that? What's the step-by-step plan? Well, the text actually tells us there is no technique for acquiring this. Only life itself teaches you how to surrender. I know, right? That sounds super frustrating, but honestly, it's incredibly liberating. It means you can't force it with some rigid intellectual 10-step program. It's not a skill you can cram for. It's all about a deep internal surrender to the natural flow of life. It's an unlearning of our desperate need to control everything around us.
Instead of a technique, it's a feeling. Ancient wisdom often refers to this as trusting your hara or tanden, which are simply traditional terms for your center or your gut feeling. It's about moving your awareness out of your buzzing head and down into your body. It's this internal relaxation where you just let go of the need to control every single outcome. You begin to feel completely supported by life itself without having to constantly push or force things to happen.
Which leads us to part 4, the power of pure presence. Once we cultivate that deep trust and stop letting fear dictate our busyness, we step into the ultimate stage. And at this highest level, something truly magical happens. The frantic thinking completely ceases. You aren't worried about the past, you aren't anxious about the future, the noise just stops. And when it does, the text says we are guided entirely into the eternal now. You are fully, completely immersed in the sheer beauty of the present moment. Living in the now totally shifts your entire perspective. You begin to understand that even the smallest things, like leaves on a tree or the stones on the ground, are absolutely full of life. This is such a beautiful concept. When you aren't completely distracted by the constant chatter in your mind, you suddenly notice the incredible richness of the world around you. Everything just feels vibrant, connected, and completely bursting with existence. The text describes 3 really profound effects of being in this state. First, the illusion of time disappears. You might sit for hours and it feels like minutes, or vice versa, simply because you were just being. Second, your body experiences deep physical relaxation all the way down to a cellular level, because that underlying survival fear is finally gone. And third, you feel a profound sense of unity with everything around you. You aren't separate from the world anymore. You are intrinsically a part of it.
And finally, part 5, embracing the sacred silence.
We finally arrive at the culmination of this whole journey. The source text ties everything together with the concept of the sacred Om. Now, it defines this not as some strict religious dogma, but rather as the fundamental, quiet pulse of life. It's described as the soundless sound. It represents the pure, underlying vibration of existence that connects every single living thing in the universe. It's literally always there, humming in the background. But we can only actually tune into it when we finally stop rushing, stop overthinking, and fully embrace the silence. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really powerful question. How will you bring more presence into your day-to-day? The journey from a frantic insect to a state of pure presence, well, it doesn't happen overnight, but it does start with a single moment of awareness. What's one small thing you can do today to step off the autopilot? Can you take 5 minutes just to sit without your phone? Can you make a decision based on your gut feeling instead of overthinking it to death? Can you look at a tree and just really, truly see it? The power of the present moment is waiting for you whenever you're ready to stop and just listen to the silence.